The pressure to send tanks to Ukraine is on as the war enters its 11th month. Senator Lindsey Graham visited Kyiv on Friday, and he urged the U.S. and Germany to send tanks to Ukraine, tweeting, quote, "World order is at stake." Representative McCall went on ABC's This Week to call on the U.S. to send at least one Abrams tank to Ukraine. Take a listen.
So just one Abrams tank, you think, would release all the Leopard?
Or even saying that we're going to put Abrams tanks in, I think would be enough for Germany to unleash.
Well, McCall also added if Ukraine were to be given even one of those Abrams tanks, that Russia would most likely put in Leopard tanks. There are about 10 European countries that have possession of these Leopard tanks right now. Any that would want to re-export theirs to Ukraine, though, would need permission from Germany first. Now, Germany's foreign minister said today that they would not stand in the way of Poland if they decide to send their Leopard tanks to assist Ukraine. Officials in Ukraine have been requesting the German-made tanks for months now, with Germany holding back on sending them and allowing other NATO countries to do so. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson recently visited Ukraine and called for countries to, quote, double down to give Ukraine the tools they need to win the war. The UK has agreed to send Challenger 2 tanks to the battlefield in Ukraine. So joining us now to talk more about this, Lieutenant General Richard Newton. Lieutenant General, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, Natasha.
Can you help us understand Germany's delay or hesitation to give Ukraine these tanks if they are needed? Why are they refusing?
Well, it's quite complex. Let me first start off. There was a very successful contact group meeting with senior officials from not only NATO, but also several allies on Friday that concluded, led by our Secretary of Defense, Austin. One of the sticking points, however, as you alluded to here, is whether or not Germany is willing to give their tanks over to Ukraine. And I think you also mentioned there's nearly 2,000 Leopard tanks, these German tanks that are spread across 13 countries in NATO. But that said, Germany has some challenges here. First off, their readiness is at a rather low point right now in terms of funding and also capabilities. They have had a historical, rather tepid, relationship with providing offensive capabilities with NATO allies and partners because of their history, and so they're not necessarily prone to want to be very proactive in terms of providing offensive capabilities. You can go all the way back to World War II when Hitler invaded the Soviet Union and so forth. And so that's really where their position is. Right now, their government is trying to weigh this. But as you mentioned, the German Minister of Foreign Affairs said she would not stand in the way if Poland decided to lend their tanks to Ukraine. I think it's much needed.
Yeah, would these tanks make a crucial difference, and why?
The tanks themselves won't make a crucial difference. And what's crucial here is really creating a more effective, what we call combined operations. Combined operations being for artillery and infantry and air defense. Combined operations also would include the Bradley vehicles and the Stryker vehicles that are very significant, and we're going to provide those according to the Biden administration on Friday. But also these tanks will then really help with the integrated capabilities, properly trained and put on the battlefield, and I believe will strongly make a difference. Not just the tank itself, but the combined capabilities. And let me add one more thing. That combined operations also, in my view, would include close air support aircraft, that being the Air Force's A-10 attack aircraft or the F-16 Fighting Falcon. So all in all, I believe it's not just the individual weapon systems, but the weapon systems integrated, coordinated, and really as a whole will be much more effective and can turn the tide, which I anticipate a culminating period here coming in the next couple months.
All right. I appreciate the context. Lieutenant General Richard Newton, thank you so much.
Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.